In the quiet town of Maplewood, there was a cornfield that stood at the edge of a dark, dense forest. Every summer, the field would flourish with golden stalks, tall and lush. But locals whispered tales of the cornfield being cursed. They said if you wandered too close at night, you would hear the whispers of the lost. One summer evening, a group of friends decided to test the legend. They had heard stories of people going missing in the cornfield, lured by the voices that echoed between the rows. Curiosity got the better of them, and they ventured into the field armed with flashlights and bravado. As they stepped into the rows, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows. The friends laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. But as they walked deeper, the laughter faded, replaced by a thick silence that hung in the air. Suddenly, one of them, Sarah, stopped. "I hear something," she said, her voice trembling. The others fell silent, straining to listen. At first, it was faint, almost like a soft humming. But then, it transformed into hushed voices, calling out their names. Sarah. Mark. Lisa. The voices were soft yet insistent, echoing through the cornstalks. "Do you hear that?" Mark whispered, his eyes wide with fear. They exchanged glances, each one reflecting a mix of intrigue and dread. The whispers grew louder, urging them to follow, as if promising secrets hidden in the depths of the cornfield. Compelled by a strange force, they moved further in, the air growing colder with each step. The moonlight barely penetrated the rows, casting elongated shadows that seemed to reach for them. Suddenly, Sarah gasped, pointing toward a figure standing at the far end of the field. It was a child, dressed in tattered clothes, standing motionless among the stalks. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice chillingly sweet. Mark, drawn by an inexplicable urge, started toward the child, but Lisa grabbed his arm. "No! It's a trap," she shouted, fear gripping her. But the whispers intensified, swirling around them like a storm. "Help us, come closer," they beckoned, each word slicing through the heavy silence. The friends were torn, caught between the eerie pull of the figure and the instinct to flee. "Let's get out of here," Sarah yelled, turning back. But as they tried to retreat, the ground seemed to shift beneath them. The stalks began to close in, creating a maze they couldn't escape. Panic set in as they turned in circles, desperately searching for a way out. The whispers morphed into agonizing wails, filling the air with despair. Just when they thought they would be swallowed by the darkness, they stumbled into a clearing. The moon illuminated a strange sight, a circle of withered corn, as if the plants had been burned away. In the center lay remnants of old toys and clothing, remnants of those who had come before them. Suddenly, the whispers ceased. The child figure dissolved into the night, leaving them breathless and terrified. "Run!" Lisa shouted, and they sprinted toward the edge of the field, hearts pounding. They finally burst through the rows, gasping for breath as they reached safety. Breathless, they looked back, the cornfield now silent and ominous. From that day on, none of them ever returned, haunted by the realization of what lay among the stalks. The whispers remained, a reminder of those lost to the shadows, forever waiting for someone to heed their call. In a small farming community, there was a tradition that marked the end of the harvest season. Every October, townsfolk would gather for the Great Corn Maze, a celebration that attracted visitors from far and wide. But as the event grew in popularity, so did the tales of horror associated with the maze. It was said that every year, one person would go missing during the festivities. No one could explain how or why, but the townsfolk began to whisper about a dark presence that dwelled within the cornfield. Despite the warnings, the maze continued to draw crowds, eager for the thrill of getting lost among the towering stalks. One year, a young couple, Jake and Emily, decided to attend the event. They laughed as they entered the maze, excited for an evening of fun. But as they wandered deeper, the cheerful sounds of laughter and chatter faded into an eerie silence. "Where did everyone go?" Emily asked, glancing around. Jake shrugged, trying to maintain his composure. But as they turned a corner, they found themselves in a part of the maze that felt unfamiliar and wrong. The corn stalks were taller here, the air thicker with an unsettling tension. Then, they heard it, a soft rustling that seemed to come from all around them. "Is someone else here?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Jake shook his head, feeling a chill creep down his spine. "Let's just find our way out," he said, trying to sound brave. But as they retraced their steps, they discovered that the paths had changed, leaving them disoriented. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the maze, freezing them in place. "What was that?" Jake whispered, eyes wide with fear. Before Emily could respond, they spotted a shadowy figure moving between the stalks, its eyes glinting in the dim light. Panic surged as they turned to run, but the maze twisted and turned, confounding their escape. The growling grew closer, a guttural sound that filled them with terror. "Jake, we need to get out. Now!" Emily screamed, her voice breaking. They stumbled through the maze, breathless and desperate, until they came upon a clearing. But it wasn't the exit they had hoped for. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by a circle of corn, where the stalks were withered and blackened. In the center lay a wooden altar, adorned with strange symbols and offerings. As they approached, they realized it was a tribute to something sinister lurking in the cornfield. The growling intensified, now a chorus of low snarls echoing all around them. "We have to go back," Jake yelled, fear overwhelming him. They turned, racing back into the maze, but the path seemed to lead them deeper into the darkness. Every turn brought them closer to the growling, the shadows closing in around them. Finally, they spotted a distant light, an opening. With every ounce of strength, they pushed through the corn, crashing toward freedom. But as they burst through the last row, they looked back and saw the shadows retreating, watching them with glowing eyes. Breathless, they stumbled into the safety of the festival, but the thrill was gone. They learned later that a boy had gone missing that night, never to be seen again. From that day on, the couple avoided cornfields, haunted by the memory of the harvest and the dark presence that dwelled within. In the heart of the Midwest, a notorious cornfield lay untouched for decades. The locals avoided it, whispering tales of a curse that haunted the land. Legend had it that a farmer, driven mad by grief, had lost his family in a tragic accident. In his despair, he summoned dark forces to bring them back, but instead, he unleashed something evil. Many who entered the cornfield never returned, their screams carried away by the wind. Despite the warnings, a group of thrill-seekers decided to challenge the curse, hoping to uncover its secrets. One autumn night, they set out for the cornfield, armed with flashlights and bravado. As they entered the rows, the atmosphere felt thick, charged with an energy that made their skin crawl. They laughed nervously, trying to shake off the unease that settled over them. But as they ventured deeper, they stumbled upon a clearing surrounded by darkened stalks. In the center stood an old, rusted tractor, its wheels sunk into the earth. Curiosity piqued, they approached, but as they did, a cold wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing their flashlights. In the darkness, they heard soft whispers, echoing through the cornfield like a haunting melody. "Leave this place, it's not safe," the voices seemed to warn them. Panic surged as they fumbled for their phones, only to find that all signals were lost. "Let's go back," one of them shouted, but the path they had taken vanished into shadows. The whispers grew louder, morphing into desperate cries. "Help us, help us," the sorrowful tones chilled them to the bone. Suddenly, they spotted figures moving in the distance, shadows darting between the stalks. Fear gripped them as they realized they were not alone. "Run," they shouted, but the darkness enveloped them, obscuring their escape. They sprinted through the rows, the whispers chasing them, urging them to turn back. "Why did you come here? You'll never leave," the voices echoed, wrapping around them like a vice. Every turn brought them closer to the figures, who seemed to taunt them from the edges of their vision. Just when they thought they would be lost forever, they broke through the corn and stumbled into the road. Gasping for breath, they looked back, the cornfield now silent, the whispers faded into the night. But as they drove away, they felt the weight of unseen eyes watching them, a lingering presence that refused to let go. The next morning, news spread that a local farmer had disappeared. Those who ventured near the cornfield reported strange happenings, and the whispers continued to haunt the area. From that day forward, the thrill-seekers never spoke of their night in the cornfield, a shared secret that bound them in fear. The curse remained, waiting for the next curious soul to wander into its grasp, forever lost among the stalks. The cornfield, with its whispering stalks and haunting shadows, became a symbol of fear in the small town. Though many tried to uncover its secrets, those who ventured too close learned that some stories were meant to remain buried. As the legends continued, the townsfolk remained vigilant, wary of the dark force that lurked within the cornfield, always waiting for the next unfortunate soul to heed its call. In the end, the true horror wasn't just the darkness of the cornfield itself, but the realization that some mysteries should never be explored.